As a coaster enthusiast, one of the things I get asked the most is what is my favorite roller coaster that I have ever built. So without further ado, here are my top 15 roller coasters that I have built out of NEX. At number 15, we have Iron Guazi from Busch Gardens, Tampa. This is what you would call a hybrid coaster because it stands over 200 feet, and this was a fun one to build. I always love building RMC hybrids because the bank turns always look glorious, and I love how this flies through the track and also keeps its pacing throughout the whole ride because I made elements just slightly taller than they should be so that way it maintains the pace and it doesn't look like the ride just has pacing issues. But overall, fun ride to build. At number 14, we have Joker from Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This was one of my home park coasters and probably one of the ones that I've ridden the most, so building this coaster was pretty dang easy. However, I do wish I got the layout down a little better and made it a little bit more organic because I used to build coasters kind of in a grid style based on how the connects are formed. But overall, we got the layout pretty darn well and the elements at the right proportion, so I'm happy with this coaster. Number 13, we have Incred Coaster. This was one of my first Disney-themed coasters that I built, and I'll be honest, this coaster has kind of grown on me. I love the layout of this thing, and I do kind of wish I was able to redo it, considering my building skills are a lot better now. But overall, this was a fun coaster to make, and I love how I got to be able to mess with some LEDs for this one, different little launch system. This is the chain rubber band one that I got to mess with, and I also got to put some Incredibles figures on this roller coaster and make it kind of well themed. At number 12, we have Fury 325 from Carowinds. This is one layout that I was pretty dang satisfied with, and I got to pretty much mess around with the whole L-shaped layout, and luckily I had a big enough room to do this, and these elements are some of my favorite elements to build, and they were big, they were massive. One trend you'll see is I love building things that are bigger than I am, so building this coaster was one heck of a challenge to make sure I got every element right and smoothed out. However, it turned out so well in the end. At number 11, we have Manta from SeaWorld Orlando. This is one of the few coasters that I got to make very blacklight-ish and glow-in-the-dark, so I was really satisfied with that portion of it, and also one of my first and pretty much only flying coasters that I ever built. I normally don't build inverted or flying coasters just because they're a little tougher to make and to make accurate, and also I kind of wish they were sturdier to make, but all in all, they're cool layouts to look at as long as getting them right. I'm practicing my skills on making sure to get these better. This was one of the best ones I probably have that turned out well.
Now to strike.
Now we're in the top 10. At number 10, we have Medusa, also from Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Also one of my home park coasters, so therefore, this ride was also pretty easy to build. And this layout for a B&M floorless coaster, I was very satisfied with how it turned out. I mean, I did tons of research, and after going to the park so many times, I pretty much just copycatted from photographic memory on how to build this coaster. And also, this is one of the first coasters where I had custom trains made by Gundam Gabe. At number 9, we have Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point. After going to Cedar Point and actually riding this thing, I noticed that this thing is way bigger than I anticipated, and looking back on how I built it, I would say I did a decent job. However, I do wish I kind of made this coaster bigger now because some of these elements were very compressed and kind of just smushed in there because I wanted to make sure we get every single airtime element of this roller coaster, which I achieved of doing. But also, I kind of mixed in micro connects with this coaster because at the time, I didn't have enough of the big connect structure, so I wish I was able to rebuild this thing and make it even better than the model that I built back in 2018. Overall, awesome coaster though. At number 8, we have Space Mountain from Disneyland. So this coaster, I got to really get wicked with all of the LED lights and also a star projector on this roller coaster, and we also got some custom trains made for this one as well. So I tried to get this one 100% accurate with the theming, both inside and outside, so I used a lot of paper and foam to make sure we got the top of the mountain correct, or in this case, a dome, and the coaster pretty much did pretty well with the layout. It was a pretty easy layout to build, but I just had to make sure it was 100% correct. So it took some digging to find out how the staging was and how each level was, and making sure each element hit as you would feel it on the actual ride, because you can't really see anything. At number 7, we have Hang Time from Knott's Berry Farm. This was one of my favorite roller coasters to ride as well as build. Short layout, so not really too hard to build, and the elements are all super compressed and compact with each other. The main takeaway from this coaster is I got to build an automatic hanging drop, just like you do on the actual ride. So it was all coated with Lego Mindstorms, and all I had to do was make a time delay and make sure it held up there for a few seconds, and then just drop you straight down through the entire layout. So that was a really cool feature to mess with on this coaster. At number 6, we have the Incredible Hulk coaster from Islands of Adventure. Now this coaster was one I was super duper satisfied with. Everything from the tunnel to the customized station we did on the outside, as well as the launch we got to do using a classic NEX booster. However, boosting it out of there was super fun to always watch. And then all the B&M elements were very hard to build, as well as making them tall enough as well as short enough to make sure that the train actually clears every single element. But in the end, it was one of my favorite things to build, and it stretched the entirety of this entire room you see.
Arthur warned me about the...
Now we're at the top 5. At number 5, we have Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. This was probably the longest coaster that I've ever built, meaning it took about 2.5 months to make, with all of the theming around it, so I had to get quite a bit of help making this thing a reality, and I also finally got to code a switch track. So this was the first coaster I got to use Lego Mindstorms on, and we coded a switch track just to make sure it was operational to go forwards and backwards, and we also had the drop track sequence as well. So this was one heck of a project, but man, it was so fun to watch in the end a couple times. The only thing with this coaster was it did take a lot of manual control to make sure it actually worked every single run that we did when filming the coaster. At number 4, we have Veloca Coaster. You can really tell that I love Islands of Adventure's coasters. This is probably their newest edition and probably their best one they have at that. And this coaster I got to really get wicked with the hydraulic launch system that I made using latex tubing and coating with Mindstorms. It was one fun coaster to watch as well as build. Testing this coaster was super fun because sometimes I'll just launch the coaster numerous times until the batteries ran out, and then obviously I had to replace them. But the theming was not too over the top and too hard to make, so it was pretty cool just making those little elements a reality for the Raptor paddock section, and then the rest of the coaster is just awesome to watch as well, the second half as it is. At number 3, we have Intimidator 305, or Project 305 from King's Dominion. However, I personally like to call it Intimidator more. It's a better name. So for this coaster, I had built this all the way back in 2017, I believe around the end there, and it was just an okay model that I built. So I decided to reimagine it and redo it, and I made it twice as big. So this coaster stands way taller than me. I can literally walk under the lift hill, and all these elements stretched the entirety of this room. So we had to make sure that this coaster was very drawn out and make the elements just as snappy as they are on the actual ride. And it was so fun watching this coaster. I can literally watch this one for hours. And now we have our runner-up at number 2, which will used to be my favorite roller coaster that I have ever built, and that is Matterhorn from Disneyland. Remember how I said I love to build things that are bigger than I am? This coaster stood a whopping 8 feet and 3 inches. So this was such a masterpiece, not to brag about what I was building, but this was such a cool thing to build. Being one of my first coasters that I've ever ridden, and getting to finally make the track and just make the entire mountain as well, it was just such a fun experience, and I would definitely build something like this again because I love coasters that weave through mountains. And with that being said, here is my number 1 favorite roller coaster that I have built.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness!
And you guessed it, my number 1 favorite coaster that I have built is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad from Disneyland. So we kind of used the same system like we did for Matterhorn by spray painting butcher paper and then attaching it all onto the structure of the coaster, and then just painting all the textures, covering it with the trees, the goat with the dynamite, the rattlesnakes. Everything that is on the ride that you see when you're riding it is also on this little model. We also made a little splashdown with water fountains, so the coaster actually dips through a little water thing, and that just topped it all off for me. What even topped it off even more is we had probably the best custom trains that Gundam Gabe has ever made for a project, and that is these wonderful trains that look like the exact model of the actual coaster. So therefore, this one's definitely going to be one hard one to pass up and make make better than. So there you have it, folks. There are my top 15 roller coasters that I have ever built. If you would like to see me build a coaster that I haven't done yet, feel free to post in the comments or send me a message on Instagram at rollercoastercrafter, no spaces or caps. I am always thinking about new ideas and trying to build different recreations of coasters around the world because there are so many. So make sure you do that, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more videos as I will keep them coming. Thank you guys. I will see you next time on the Coaster Crafter channel. Peace!